Speaking for the few dozen or so people invested in the incredibly niche market of gay dating sims, wasn't Coming Out on Top awesome? This seminal classic of the genre is funny, sexy, and firmly aware of the inherent ridiculousness of its concept. There's only one little problem here. Coming Out on Top came out in 2014, and in the fast-moving worlds of video games and snarky gay comedy, that renders it practically a relic of a bygone era, with dated celebrity references and a range of diversity that was impressive at the time, but that now comes off as more limited than it really could be. Quite a few dating sims have debuted in the years since, all putting their own spin on the premise with varying degrees of success, and not all that much notoriety apart from the one I'm no longer going to even dignify naming. Coming Out on Top was an inspiration to many, but no game has ever managed to capture that same energy, that same combination of earnestness, humor, and hardcore raunch. Until now. The evocatively titled All Men Are Pigs, which released just this summer, is in many respects the ultimate love letter to Coming Out on Top. The overall presentation is similar, and their protagonist might as well be the same person. He's, to put it bluntly, a basic white twink with a fantastically bland default name. That aside, though, you'll notice right away that the humor comes from a markedly different source. Where Coming Out on Top delights in fourth-wall-leaning meta-humor and pure absurdism, All Men Are Pigs draws much of its comedic inspiration from the likes of telenovelas and other melodramatic media. This is evidenced by the game's opening, in which the main character catches his boyfriend in bed with his mother and nopes the hell out of that situation so hard that he winds up in another country. Nearly every storyline features at least one more such humorously overwrought twist, incorporating all the usual soap opera staples, from secret relative reveals to people faking dead to convoluted love polygons. All Men Are Pigs manages to be simultaneously both more and less grounded in realism than Coming Out on Top. And while which style of humor you prefer will naturally depend on your own taste, I can at least say that this game is better at remaining tonally consistent, in part because it was released all at once and hasn't gotten a bunch of experimental updates since then. What stands out as well is the greater feeling of organic diversity. The game is set in a fictional island country in the Caribbean, one that hosts immigrants from all over the globe while retaining a distinct local culture more vibrant than that of Coming Out on Top's generic American university town. Santa Locora's multicultural makeup is also evidenced in the game's roster of love interests, who showcase considerable variety in age, race, and body type. In addition to multiple flavors of Latin lovers, All Men Are Pigs allows you to pursue a hunky Thai social media influencer, a shy Turkish baker, and an Icelandic ginger bear, among others. Prepare for an impressive amount of untranslated dialogue in languages other than English. Might be a bit frustrating if you're not a polyglot, but I appreciate the effort. Similar to Coming Out on Top, each of these men also encounter the protagonist at different stages in their own journeys of queer self-discovery, from the straight but curious to the out and proud barflies. I must also point out that this is the first explicit visual novel I've ever come across to include a trans man in its list of love interests. And unlike a certain other game, his trans identity comes into play in both the details of his storyline and in his erotic scenes. Another highlight is that one of the characters is a drag queen, and one segment of the story directly pulls on elements of drag ball culture to build an utterly over-the-top but still very satisfying climax. While we're talking about story structure, something else that sets All Men Are Pigs apart from most other games like it is in how it deviates from the branching routes with affection point system common to many dating sims. A few of the love interest storylines utilize elements of this setup, but never all the way. Instead, most characters have their content gated behind specific dialogue choices, some of which appear quite a ways into the story, allowing you to romance multiple characters up to a point. Seeing as All Men Are Pigs does not shy away from early sex scenes, and can on occasion be as raunchy as its title suggests, this allows you to play the field, with entertaining results. There are even some unique scenes that play out if you try to romance specific combinations of characters at the same time. And while some of those outcomes will decidedly not resolve in good endings, the game does still find ways to reward you for your willingness to set up your own soap opera cliches. Even more notably, 3 of the love interests don't even have proper roots so much as their stories take up entire arcs of the main plot. This is especially true with the man who functions as the game's antagonist, a wealthy businessman with designs on buying the charmingly seedy dive bar where most of the cast works. He'll be out to wine and dine the main character regardless of your choices, and to reach a good ending, you'll have to find some way to navigate this sugar daddy's power trip, whether by getting him to fall in love, or by taking advantage of his affections for you to engage in some espionage. The potential outcomes to this sequence of events range from the heartwarming to the gloriously deranged. I swear, you'll never hear Ave Maria the same way again after playing this game. And there's even a villainous ending if you want the two of you to be evil corporate overlords together. However, I can see some players being turned off by how this love interest is essentially forced on you. Doubly so because it entangles you in some serious ethical dilemmas. There's a similar arc later in the game involving the protagonist's hot and cold roommate, but that development can be at least skipped entirely if you're not interested in the guy. That brings me at last to what I think stands out the most about this game, just as it did in coming out on top. Stories like these that revolve around romantic relationships always run the risk of becoming mired in well-worn tropes, of having their characters and situations develop out of those familiar beats rather than being built up more organically. While I don't think that would ever be truly avoidable in a dating sim, All Men Are Pigs nonetheless manages to walk the line between the intentionally ridiculous and the impactful, between overwrought romance and moments of plain sincerity. Like its spiritual predecessor, much of its authenticity stems from its portrayals of queer male life and identity in a variety of forms, offering us stories about the kinds of people and settings rarely featured in mainstream video games, or even what we might call traditional yaoi or BL games. It may not be the cleanest or most polished visual novel out there, but I believe that, just as with coming out on top, those imperfections only add to the charm, and the importance of personal representation expressed in this game's existence. I can't neglect the sex either, which covers a wide array of scenarios from the vanilla to the kinky, and which, again, adds to the sense of the game wanting to be an authentic portrayal of its characters' lives and sexual behaviors. All men may be pigs, but in some contexts that's kinda hot, isn't it? If you're interested in checking out All Men Are Pigs for yourself, I've included a link to its store page in the description. Needless to say, I highly recommend it if you liked coming out on top. And if you're a fan of gay dating sims in general, I think it'll have something for you to enjoy as well. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel, especially if you'd like to hear my thoughts on other games in this genre. Thanks for watching. Au revoir!